Good morning to you all, wherever you are. I see from the people signed up that we've got people from all around the globe. My name is Duncan McFarlane. I'm here with my colleagues Liz Salter and Alan Thorne to talk about to automate or not. I'm a professor in the Institute for Manufacturing here in Cambridge. Liz is an industrial associate working with us in our consultancy services, and Alan Thorne is a senior technical officer within the Distributed Information and Automation Laboratory. And what the schedule for today is that we're just going to spend the first 5 or 10 minutes giving a little bit of an introduction to what the Institute for Manufacturing, or IFM, is and how we look at automation within the IFM. And then we'll go on to the main body of the talk, which is about our automation assessment approach. And Alan and Liz will be doing that. And we'll have time for a Q&A at the end. So just firstly, the Institute for Manufacturing is part of the University of Cambridge, Cambridge's engineering department, which is broken into 6 divisions, and one of the divisions, Manufacturing and Management, is the home of the Institute for Manufacturing. So just to give you a sense of our automation and control activities within the IFM, just a couple of quick points, and apologies for my poor artwork on the right-hand side, but what it involves is a standard feedback loop in which an operation is sensed, decisions are made on the basis of the needs, and actions are taken. No need to worry about the cartoons, but the main point to make is when we talk about automation, we talk about the automation of sensing, decision-making, as well as actions or actuation. In our work, we use all sorts of technologies such as AI, or auto ID, analytics, machine learning, etc. Our work historically has been heavily focused on what we call conditions of disruption and change. So we try to build automation systems that are resilient to disruptive situations occurring. And as you can see from the list there, we work with a large number of end users such as Boeing, Lang O'Rourke, GSK, etc., but also with system providers such as Omron, Beckhoff, Siemens, and many more. So it just gives you an idea of our type of work. Within the automation and control activity, we have a number of themes. I'm just going to mention those themes before we go into our automation assessment work. The first theme we've been working on for almost 20 years now is something we call distributed and automated intelligence. And that's getting a lot more publicity in these days of AI being in the news all the time, but has been something we've been looking at for a long time, finding ways in which we can embed intelligence and smarts and thinking capabilities into industrial products and resources. And this gives you, as I was saying earlier, an ability to be highly resilient in the face of change. So those machines and products can steer their own operations. The second theme has been work around what we call auto ID systems, or automated identification systems. Most commonly known one is barcode, but RFID, QR codes, Bluetooth, real-time location systems are all in that category, where we've developed lots of solutions for finding ways to track products and objects and parts throughout the industrial supply chains. A third theme is something we've got more involved in the last 2 or 3 years, has been around starting to look at very, very low cost automation solutions. Initially, we're looking at small companies, SMEs, but increasingly we're starting to involve larger companies in that work on low cost automation and trying to use not just standard industrial products, but everyday products like Raspberry Pis or our iPhones or Alexa in industrial automation solutions. And a final theme in our automation control activities is appropriate automation approaches, getting the balance between whether you should automate or not automate. And the auditing tool we've developed is essentially focused around that question, whether to automate or not, and where we should automate. So at that point, I'm going to hand over to Alan Thorne, who will start to introduce the motivation and the background to our automation and assessment tool.
Hello everyone. It's good to be speaking with you today. So as Duncan said, I'm going to give you a bit of the motivation behind why we developed this tool. Over the years, we've had lots of automation projects. We've got very good links with industry, and we have a good automation laboratory here at the IFM. So we have a lot of people visiting or talking to us and trying to understand how they can move forward with automation. And this has really driven us to put this tool together to help people. And the kind of questions that we're getting from people is someone come in and go, I'm getting an increased customer demand, you know, I've got to produce more product. Would automation be able to help me? I'm going to be launching a new product. Is this the time to be adding automation? Where would it hit? There's new technologies that might be suitable. Again, how can I start to introduce those into my processes? And it can be even as simple as you've had workers within your organization that have gone to a show and they've seen a new technology such as a new robot and they think that's fantastic and they'd love to introduce it. And you really need to understand what's maybe the appropriate way to do it. So there's lots of good things that come around why people want to move forward with putting automation in. On the other hand, of course, automation is good at supporting things. And some of the challenges people look at is labor cost. You know, can I use it? The labor cost keeps going up. How can I use it to support me? A big issue with companies is things like repetitive strain injuries. Where can I take that heavy workload out of operations? Can automation help me with that? Or if I'm having quality issues, would there be ways in which inspection automation processes might be able to help? And of course, simple things like skills are retiring and you want to make sure that you're understanding what they understand, building them into processes. And of course, all the time now we're getting approached by people saying, I've heard about this industry 4.0, how can I go forward with it? So that's some of the background on the motivation for it. Now, typically, the way an automation project would move forward is through these 5 steps. The first step is choosing an automation project that you're thinking about. Where am I trying to automate? What's a good project? Where's it going to go? And then once you've got an idea for where you're automating, the next thing is to do the return on investment. Does it make sense? Am I going to get a benefit? Does it cost effectively make sense to be able to do it? Once you've done that, you then start to look at specifications and requirements for that project going forward. And then you're going to start to select suppliers. And then finally, you go into the project, building the system, deploying the system, integrating and testing the system, and getting it working. So these are, in a nutshell, these are the kind of 5 steps you go through in doing this. What I'd like to do at this point is actually run a bit of a survey with you. And what would be interesting to understand from you is which of these areas do you find most difficult? So you should now see a screen that's up and it gives you a selection with tick boxes on the edge from 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Please, thinking about where you are right now, please could you tick and vote on which one you think is the most difficult for you to move forward in this area. We've got a good response to that. We're going to end that voting and I'm going to share with you the results right now. So you can see from the slide here, you can see that actually the biggest area that's come back where people are having issues is around the detailing and feasibility and the return on investment that's needed for the project. Yeah, it's actually doing that bit of work. But interestingly enough, just below that, just behind that, is actually identifying where is the automation project that you want to do. Yeah, and actually that has been the focus point for the assessment tool that we've been developing. It's helping organizations understand where should they be putting that investment. And secondly, which is very important as well, is it actually does make you think about or pull all the data that's required to start doing that return on investment calculation. So of course, we've used this tool with a number of organizations and a number of different sectors. And I thought I'd just like to share with you why these organizations thought that this was important. So Foxconn, a big electronics producer, external support sought to apply a structured approach to stimulate high-level discussion around pros and cons of automation solutions. So really, they wanted a very structured approach to how you could assess automation solutions that will come out from it. Schlumberger, in the oil and gas industry, seeking a method to categorize and prioritize multiple operations. And they were quite interesting, actually. They'd acquired a number of organizations in different areas of oil industry. And of course, they wanted, again, a structured way which they could go and review those organizations and the way they could move forward as an organization with an automation strategy. And then finally, Jaguar Land Rover, a real expert with real expertise in automation, good set. Yeah, they had multiple projects with multiple solutions, and really it was just having that robust method to say which one should we do, and this gave them the idea. It would give them a real robust method to say why one project was better than another project. Okay, I'd like to hand over now to Liz Salter, who's going to give you a bit of an overview of the tool.
Okay, morning everybody. So carrying on from what Alan was just saying and the kind of motivation and the kind of conversations we're having with businesses about where they want help and process around this decision-making piece. We've developed this tool set here at IFM, which has been specifically designed to support that decision-making activity and to help firms take a kind of longer view of a sort of automation implementation pathway. We often hear people talk about quick wins and low-hanging fruit, and obviously that's important, but you also want to be looking at the longer-term direction and the big projects and things that are going to have really significant impact on your business. And the other thing we picked up is that people are often keen to sort of shout about the advantages of automation, but it does have some downsides. Loss of flexibility is the classic one, and having that conversation at the beginning of this decision-making activity is really important. So you're looking at benefits and potential downsides, and then also with a kind of pragmatic head-on, looking at the challenges around feasibility. So which are the projects that are actually most likely to succeed in your business, and pulling all that thinking together to sort of develop this structured, prioritized implementation pathway. And the other thing we were keen to sort of capture in this tool is that most people aren't lucky enough to be coming to a greenfield site. Most people have got an existing factory, have got lots of legacy kit. So it's about looking at how well or not automation solutions will integrate into what people are doing now. And then the other thing we've learned when doing this is actually any tool like this really needs to use the expertise that companies already have in-house. So, we need to draw heavily on the in-house production engineers, the people who understand your products and your processes, and that's where the real expertise lies, and using knowledge is going to help you make the best decisions around automation. So we thought we'd put this chart up as well. This is a chart we use in our workshops, and it just kind of captures some of the points just being made there. So the sort of top left box where it says fully automated, this box here, part one, is that actual greenfield site. Foxconn, one of the companies we've been working with, they build a brand new factory in China that will only build tablets, and a specific model of tablet. The more kind of real world path that we're looking at, sometimes we're talking to companies who come in at a manual place, sometimes we're talking with semi-automated, and sometimes, as you said, we've mentioned JLR, you're into car assembly plants, but we're looking at moving along this path, and the discussion we're having with companies is getting a feel for where you are now and where you realistically might get to, and then how steep that curve can sensibly be, how quickly can you get to your desired endpoint. So very much looking at existing factories, legacy kit, and what are the things you can bring in to enhance your operations. So picking up on this point of sort of pros and cons of automation, we start off by looking at what are the opportunities, but having a sort of net score for the automation benefits. So there are the classic benefits around reducing labour costs, increasing consistency of processes, but I say there will often be a downside to automation as well. Flexibility is the classic one, but there may also be it makes it slower to introduce new products and things like that. So flagging all those issues at the beginning and getting a net score for the benefit, making sure you've thought about the downsides as well. And then similarly on feasibility, so how likely is an automation project to succeed? So we look at this in two ways really. One is about the sort of inherent characteristics of the job you're doing, the complexity of the operation, and whether there's hidden kind of inspection activities in there, whether there's lots of degrees of freedom of movement, whether there's particular issues around alignment. So how hard is the task to automate? And then we're also looking at things like whether there are existing solutions there, whether you could buy equipment that already exists, whether something similar being done in a related industry, but then also being pragmatic about the factory you're going to put it into. Have you got the space? Do you have the services? Will you have people there to be able to maintain it for you? So again, being very, at this very first stage of choosing projects, trying to think about all the things that will help it succeed, but might also hold you back and stop it succeeding. Even if it looks like a really attractive project, there may be some absolute blockers that just say you cannot implement this. So then having got the opportunity score and the feasibility score, is then interesting to look at those two together. So you can see the kind of things we're looking at under opportunity, you can see the kind of things we're considering under feasibility. When we go into a company and do this, those lists are an awful lot longer, and we tailor those lists for the specific company, which Alan will come on to in a minute. But we end up with an opportunity score and feasibility score for each individual project being considered, and then we put them onto a classic 2x2 matrix. And obviously you're hoping there'll be some highly attractive, high net opportunity score projects, which are also highly feasible, to where that green arrow sits. There may well be something bottom left, which, you know, someone thought it sounded good, but when you started to pick it apart, actually the opportunity wasn't that great and it wasn't that feasible. And then the two orange quadrants are interesting as well. So the bottom right, those are the ones which are really attractive projects but do have significant feasibility challenges. So we wouldn't be saying, well, don't do those. We'd be saying, think hard about that. If there may be a really big prize in automating, but you want to prepare and resource carefully, you want to project manage expertly, you want proper management attention. And then the other point, actually picking up on the slides Duncan put up right at the beginning, there may be that top left quadrant, there may be things which aren't massive in terms of opportunity, but actually are very feasible. There's off-the-shelf automation solutions that exist. You can, and if you've got quite a lot of projects sitting up there, there may be lots of little things that actually, if you bundle them together, they can cumulatively have a very beneficial effect and not actually be that difficult to implement. So really, yeah, 4 key steps that we go through when we're using this tool. Obviously, a very important step one, to make sure you're looking at the right product families and the right factories, things which have a decent product life cycle to them, things where there perhaps is a sort of degree of automation already and you can be building on that. Then we go in and do this opportunity and feasibility piece. So we work on a tailored list of criteria for each company for opportunity and for feasibility. We do some nice work on idea generation and what are all the things you could be automating, making sure you've thought of everything. And then we plot and review, pull out that 2x2 matrix, and then use that as a decision support tool that helps you then develop this automation picture where you really can confidently say you've thought about everything you could. And just to flag back again on what Alan was saying, this is very much that step one. It's the decision support tool. It's the deciding which projects to go ahead with. You then still have steps 2, 3, 4, 5 to go through. But one of the things we found working with companies here, and this is something that JLR really flagged up, if you do a really good step one and really look at why you want to automate, the benefits you're seeking from automation, the things that are going to drive the feasibility or not, you're really informing the next steps as well. So when you're doing your ROI, you've done a lot of the legwork already. When you go out and talk to suppliers, you're very clear about the benefits that you want. And actually, that's another interesting point too, because something we find is it's hard to get automation advice from people who aren't trying to sell you an automation solution. So doing this kind of analytical piece up front before you then go and engage with the automation providers is a really useful exercise to have gone through internally. And again, it helps you, it's a kind of risk assessment piece in there as well. You flag the potential downsides, you flag the things which make implementation difficult. So it all helps in those later stages of projects. So I'll just hand back to Alan and give you a little bit more detail of how we then engage.
Okay, so how do we do this? So this is typically the timeline for a triple core project that we do with a company. You can see that we break it up into 2 workshop activities that happen during an engagement. Workshop 1 and workshop 2. So starting off the project, we normally have a project kickoff. We come to the factory, get to understand your operations, start to talk to you about the kind of data that's good for support workshop 1. The kind of things we're looking at there are, what are the KPIs you're measuring? What are the kind of performance issues you're having? Late delivery, quality issues, what's the lifespan on your products? Which areas are you starting to think about where automation would be? So that workshop 1 is really about the ideas generation for where automation will be, as well as pulling in ideas from us from doing that factory visit and reviewing, thinking about other things we've seen in other areas where we've seen benefits coming in. And that's really to drive that first workshop. The other thing that we start to do in that workshop is talk about these criteria. And as I say, we over all the projects we've done, we've developed this opportunities and feasibility criteria list that we use. We share it with you, we discuss it with you, we look at how appropriate those criteria are for you, for your needs. And I'm going to talk a bit more about that later. Once we've done that, we do another thing, a ranking process of those criteria in that workshop as well. So in the back of that, at the back of that workshop, we're in a place where we understand your ideas for projects. You've had some input from us from ideas from projects. We know criteria. We know where you're going well or not going well. We know the kind of products where you're trying to introduce the automation to support. So we then go away and we start to develop the model. So the model that we develop for scoring this is done on an Excel. Yeah. So it's totally takeawayable by you at the end of the project. You'll get an Excel deliverable with a model integrated into it with all these criteria and scorings. And a key thing in the workshop, actually, I should say in that workshop, is the workshop is broad. We include engineers, people in product design, we include people in finance. We try to be inclusive as possible with the people that are involved in that ideas generation, understanding problems in that first workshop. We'll go away, we develop the model for doing the assessment, and then what we start to do is we'll start to populate that model, and that's either done by coming back and doing factory visits and to understand more, working maybe more specifically with owners or people that are closer to that project area. But we normally have a person that's carrying the project through. So someone that's looking after automation. So he's got visibility, or she, of the whole process. So by the end of this, we then have scored projects. We'll know where they've sent, and then we come back into workshop 2. And workshop 2 is really about reviewing the findings from the model. And what we're trying to do here is pull out which are the really the nuggets, the really good projects going forward. We're also starting to identify which are the projects that link together, that actually build that strategy for you going forward. So there might be some sub-projects that you do to start with that would link to other projects. There can also be, we work with many companies that have got multiple facilities. And what we find is some facilities have got better capabilities than others. So the other thing we're looking at there is where would you start to pilot or introduce certain projects and then have a strategy for how you would expand them off into other sites. I'll talk about that a bit more. Finally, we take the outputs from workshop 2 and that builds this kind of strategy plan for automation going forward, as well as giving you all the model and the underlying work that's gone below it. So like I say, fundamental to this method is actually the criteria that we're using. So we have criteria for opportunities and criteria for feasibility. And what we do is we look at how these criteria align with KPIs in your company, or what's important in your company. Yeah. So for example, if you're having quality issues, some of the criteria around inspection and quality might be higher for you. So we then look at how we rank the criteria to make it better fit to how you're trying to improve. Of course, what you're going to be doing is sitting down and marking projects against these criteria. So it's very important that you have very accurate wording that describe the measures that are put against these criteria when you're scoring a project. So we spend a lot of time building scoring sheets to help with the people from your company in actually scoring the projects. And of course, the other thing is to think about new criteria. Sometimes we look at an operation and we find that actually that something doesn't fit. We add a new criteria to make it more customized to your type of operations that are needed. So basically, inputs that are coming in are ideas from the clients about automation expertise and areas they would like to improve, where things can be improved. We'll pull ideas from if there's multiple plants that are working. We'll have multiple people from different plants where they may be doing similar or related operations that would be beneficial to the discussions. And then, of course, we're pulling in the technology work from ourselves, with things that we understand as technology areas that might be interesting to improve operations, as well as automation areas that would help you with that. Typically, we found in doing this ideas generation project, we typically generate something around about 40 to 60 kind of ideas that we then flesh out through the scoring process. Okay, so key characteristics that come out of this. We've applied it, like I say, in a number of different industries. We've been in automotive, electronics, oil and gas, pharmaceutical, have all had use of using the tool. And each of the companies have had very different levels of expertise. And again, in all of them, we found a benefit. We built the model, the approach that would support all of these areas. So it's a very structured approach that we use for identifying and ranking both these opportunity and feasibility scores. The deliverables that come out of it, as we say, is this, it's an Excel developed tool that you'll take away. You'll get the scoring for your projects. You get a 2x2 chart where your projects lie, plus the thinking about the strategic work of how projects link together and move forward. So just to cite some of the outputs that have come from people, Foxconn set up an effective platform among Foxconn facilities to evaluate automation potential. Foxconn was very interesting. We were working with their global team in doing this. Very different capabilities in different countries. The big kind of challenge they were dealing with, they had very low input on the design of the product. Also, their footprint moves quite quickly as the demand for their products moves as well. So they found this a very useful area for doing it. Another one, Jaguar Land Rover, useful results, as we said, good visibility of the method of summarising the findings from the study. So again, a very structured approach for them that they found very useful. Schlumberger, compare different centres. Schlumberger, as I said, they were acquiring a number of organisations kind of in the downturn of the oil and gas sector. And what they were doing is really trying to compare what were the capabilities of these different areas and look at how they could have this strategic view of where they were going to put automation, really to help them come out of the slump and be fighting as oil and gas prices come up. So again, that's what's come out of some of our sponsors that we've worked with on the work. So I'm going to hand back to Liz now, that's going to talk a bit more about working with us and moving forward.
Okay. I'll just wrap up really, but in terms of sort of working with IFM, hopefully you've captured those kind of key points we've been going through. The scoping here is key. You know, you've got to get the right criteria for every company. You've got to make sure you've thought about the best projects for every company. And then we develop these tailored models that then help you make the best set of decisions. Bringing in, as Alan said, bringing people in from right across the business at the very beginning of the project to sort of understand what it is you're hoping to achieve from automation, and then working with the local process owners, teams on the ground to refine the project definitions and scoring the projects, to be tailoring it. Working with the data that you've got, so we don't drive businesses off to go and get huge new data sets. It's about using your KPIs, linking the improvements into the things that matter to you, and working with the knowledge you've already got, and very much this workshop-based approach. And probably just one last point worth making, picking up on the Schlumberger example Alan just talked about. This is something that a multi-site operation. Once we've done it with you a couple of times, run a couple of workshops, you've then got a tool set that you can roll out across to as many factories as you want to. Yeah, so you've got your spreadsheet, you've built the model, you've understood the criteria. It's an approach you can use again and again on different projects. So we'll see if we've got any questions coming in. Yeah, so if you could, you have to type them in early. So there's a text box. If you've got a question you want to ask, you type it in there. Okay.
Paul Swainson, how much feedback have you had on the success of the tool? So we've had people such as Rolls-Royce that have given us good feedback on the use of the tool. They're now expanding the use of it across multiple sites, which is great. Again, Schlumberger, good use of the tool, and again, I think they've used it more than anybody, and they've got it across, I believe, over 40 sites now where they've been using the tool. So I think the feedback is that it's liked. Once you understand it and the scoring sheets are developed, it's quite easy for a local automation expert to be able to take and expand it further. This is from Tarim Shan. How often would this need to be done? Product lines and requirements change or get updated from time to time. I'm assuming that every industry has different timelines. Could you give us a few examples?
So it's extremely. Oh,
no, I was just going to say yearly to twice yearly would probably be a reasonable time cycle.
Yeah, I mean, Rolls-Royce, again, you know, the aerospace industry has very long product life cycles, so they're not running this at high frequency. But Foxconn, where they're bringing in new models of computers and laptops all the time and reconfiguring their global footprint, are running it much more often.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing is that the model is a baseline for a model would be there for you to use, and then what you'd do is you'd consider your new product, and then you'd customize it reflecting the changes for that model. So I think even though you'd repeat the process, it actually does give you a baseline to be able to use with it. Charles Clayton, what type of automation project do you advise on?
Well, I think we've done a wide range of industries, kind of classic manufacturing stuff with, you know, people often come to us with this sort of opening line of wanting to buy a robot, and we always try and throw it much more widely open than that. So looking at sort of handling projects, also looking at almost more kind of business type process type automation, and the kind of the information capture piece, the barcode scanning piece, the information analysis stuff. So, you know, we're always encouraging people to look as widely as possible at the type of automation projects they should be doing. And that's often where the sort of cross-sector view that we're lucky enough to have comes in valuable as well. You know, things that are classically automated in one industry aren't always automated in other industries, so we try and pull that thinking across as well.
Kayindalina Anizolin, thank you for the presentation. I guess it's a very case-by-case tool, the one you are using, but I wanted to ask you if you found that there are any specific challenges advising not to automate on a general level.
It usually comes back to something that's around flexibility. So whether it's about sort of picking up on an earlier question, if it's something where new products are coming through all the time and you might have to reconfigure, or where product mixes are unpredictable and highly variable, that can have a big impact. Space and services and integration with existing activities, and having the available skills. You know, if it's a factory in a less accessible part of the world and you're putting in some sophisticated production equipment, will you have the people there to support it? So those are the types of things that typically come through. And then of course the other thing can be that actually you look at the benefit side, and the benefits just aren't as significant as you thought they might be. So it might not be that there's something stopping you, but the prize might not be what you were hoping it would be.
Brian Fisher, do you provide support in the USA? Yes. We provide support globally, really. We've done projects in the USA, Turkey, around Europe. You know, yes, that's not a problem. We can travel as needed. Charles Clayton, are they just production automation, or do you also advise on automation in other areas of business?
We've had some interesting projects on the kind of distribution side, actually, automation of distribution facilities. Yeah.
And you were doing increasingly amounts of work in the warehouse automation area. In fact, we've got visitors arriving to discuss warehouse automation here this afternoon. So I think, yeah, that's something, an area that we'll be looking to do a lot more work in using the automation assessment tool in the future.
One of the other areas we've been supporting companies with is the introduction of automation into retail. I mean, if you look at the work we've done with Auto ID, we've done lots of projects in the past with people like Walmart looking at on-shelf availability of products back into the supply chain. So we look at automation in the very broad sense of where automation can support you. Daniel Aldridge, how do you take into account boundary conditions such as a corporate IT infrastructure?
Is that about integration with existing IT systems? Which we, if that's something that's important within a company, we would build that into the feasibility model.
The scoring of the feasibility.
Yeah. So if that was a particular constraint within your business, then yes, you would put that in. Yeah.
Danny does your tool help with staging lean manufacturing techniques and then automate the process in the future?
So there's a very good point in that question about not automating a bad process.
Yes.
So we don't do, we're not lean practitioners, but we would, if we came in and saw something that was, badly organised and needed lean or other principles applied to it for us, we would absolutely be encouraging that approach. And the other thing we've done, we sometimes score a kind of optimization of optimization of current operations can be a project that you can score alongside an automation project. So yeah, we absolutely get that point about making sure you've got a decent process in place first.
I think the other thing to be wary of there is we've also done work looking at the balance between being lean and being resilient. Yeah. So if you become very lean, one of the side effects is you can processes can break if they go out of control. So again, we've done lots of work actually helping people with lean processes to understand, are the processes in control and when are they going out of control? So things like tracking of material, track and trace, inspection of products, quality measures, these kind of things as well.
And there's a very similar question there from someone called Graham Howe, which is asking whether do you find that organisations that have benefit are generally already on Lean Six Sigma journey, or do you find that some initial work around Lean needs to be done? We tend to be, yes to your first question, people tend to be quite well down that path, and as we said, we would flag if we thought they had further to go. Brian Fisher, what do most companies consider an acceptable ROI? Usually the acceptable ROI is a much shorter time frame than the age of equipment they have in their factories, which just kind of contradict themselves. But a few years is what you normally see, 2 years up to 4 years. Yeah. Again, it depends on the industry.
Setting go. Do you create or help to design proper layout for required automation? So, I mean, of course, when we're there, we'll make sensible advice from what we see, and we have two ways of going forward from that. We have another tools where we go and help do selection of automation equipment that we can help you with at the next stage. We also have another part of the IFM that looks at product design. So again, design for automation of the product. So we can help you in select, getting to the point where you know your automation project. We have another method where we can then start to do selection, talking to suppliers and understanding what's the best kit for you and how effective should that kit be laid out to go into a particular process. How to decide the level of resilience of automation? It would need more budget? Question mark. That's absolutely right.
Yeah. So there's questions in the criteria about level of disruption that you see, and what kind of an environment and a production environment you're working in, and whether you typically see a lot of disruption to operations. So if it's resilience at that level, but whether it's resilience around reliability, again, that depends on the life cycle of the industry and what kind of world you're operating in. It's a hard one to answer.
There's quite a, I mean, this is a very interesting area because there's lots of work going into how can you be smart about using sensitive information, tracking information, production process information to make good decisions when you're seeing products going out of quality measures. So yes, it does depend on what kind of instrumentation you have around your process to be understand what state it's in, to get that level, that extra visibility, and to understand what's going on. Typically, it does add additional cost for a solution you've been providing.
Then we've got 2 questions from Charles Clayton. One about contact details that we put back up again. And then the other one is, in your experience, what is the typical investment made in an automation project? And again, politicians answer, but we see a huge range. We see people spending, again, if you think back to the decision matrix, actually, the 2 by 2, so the kind of bottom right ones, high opportunity, low feasibility, tend to be expensive, and you see people spending millions of pounds or dollars. But the top left, and again back to the schemes within Dial, the low cost stuff can be tens, 20,000s of pounds, and probably the average is somewhere in the few 100,000 range. Yeah, but a huge range, and the tool works in all of them. Yeah, it's not. And that's the other nice thing about it, is you can plot the multi-million-pound project on the same grid as a £10,000 project, instead of weigh the 2 things up together.
I think it's about time we ought to wrap up. Thank you very much, everyone that's been here listening to us, and for a great set of questions. As we said earlier, we'll make the slides available to people who've been listening. And I think that really just remains for us to say thank you for being on board. Look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thank you.